It is Sunday, August 3rd, 2025. We are just after 10 o'clock Eastern Time. And if it is after a WWE PLE, as it is now, Summerslam Night 2, it is Wrestling Night in America. I'm your host, Brandon LeClair. We are, of course, here to talk about the second night of SummerSlam. It's our second night in a row here on Wrestling Night in America. And happy to be here with all the folks in the chat. Already a bunch of comments lined up. A lot of people buzzing about the second night of SummerSlam from MetLife Stadium. It was, of course, hosted in New Jersey, East Rutherford, New Jersey, for the second night in a row. You may have seen at the top of the banner here the headline. I had announced on last night's show that I would be joined by PWTorch contributor Chris Adams. Unfortunately, he was unable to make it, so we do have Javier Machado joining us later on in the evening. He's going to be a little late, though, so in the meantime, we do have, as I teased last night, the one and only Greg Parks to run down a bit of the card here before Javier jumps in. Greg, welcome back. Second night in a row. How you doing?
I know. I feel like I'm in my 20s again doing these kind of shows, back to back. But at 40 years old, it gets a little tougher. So I'll be here for the first segment or so. Then I got to hop off. I start school tomorrow. So I want to make sure I have enough sleep tonight to be ready for that.
Yeah, I certainly do not blame you. They gave us plenty to talk about, of course, here as we head in to what should be an interesting fall for WWE. Now, coming out of their second biggest show of the year, we kind of had a feeling that night two might be a little bit more eventful than night one. Although with the cash in last night, there was certainly plenty to talk about and discuss. But I would say an even bigger moment to close the show tonight. Certainly, equally surprising, or I think in most instances, probably more surprising. Brock Lesnar returning after a significant absence from the company. Of course, he disappeared shortly after Janelle Grant's lawsuit against Vince McMahon and WWE was made public, and he has been gone since that time, I think, for very good reason. Greg, since you're only going to be here with us for a short period of time, I want to get your thoughts, on the card as a whole. But obviously, this is our top story here, so let's start there. I'll throw to you first. Brock Lesnar, take it away.
Gross is my first thought. This company is giving people a lot of reasons to not support it these days. And with their guaranteed TV money, they can kind of do whatever they want. And if they want to show what side of the political winds they're on, hey, I guess they don't feel any restraint with that. If they want to use someone who is mentioned, I think somebody said 44 times in the Vince McMahon lawsuit, then they can use him. And people are going to make decisions based on that. And they're going to say there's going to be a less than a more than 0% of percentage of people who watch now who are going to say, that's enough for me. I'm out. I have AEW. I have other things I can do with my life. This is going to be the breaking point for some people, I have a feeling. And it was completely unnecessary. There was no need to bring him back. I understand from a storyline standpoint that if you are telling the last chapter of John Cena's career, you want to include as many past foes as you can to come back and have that last big match with him. Certainly Brock Lesnar, if you were to make a list of the top 5, maybe top 10 opponents, that he might be on some people's top 5, but certainly on the top 10 of John Cena's biggest opponents, biggest rivals in his career, Brock Lesnar would undoubtedly be on that top 10 list, and for a lot of people would be on the top 5. And so from that standpoint, I get why you would want to involve Lesnar in that. But again, completely unnecessary. And the funny thing is, nothing has materially changed in the lawsuit or in the process of the lawsuit winding its way through the court system since the time that just time. And maybe that's all that needed to be done. Maybe they're hoping people will have forgotten about that because it's not on CNN like it was. And the only people who are paying attention now are the hardcore fans who are reading the updates from Brandon Thurston and John Pollock online, and those guys who are still following the case. The main
and Greg, don't forget that there is a non-zero, and I would say far greater than 0% chance that the whole thing just goes away because of who they have cozied up to and who Vince McMahon is cozied up to.
Yeah, that's true too. But the mainstream media has moved on, so this is not a case that's in the public eye anymore. And maybe they think they can get away with it without being harmed, but it's just, again, completely unnecessary. I think they had plenty of other potential opponents as Cena winds down his career that he could have wrestled and could have had great stories with that didn't involve bringing back someone the likes of Brock Lesnar, who has, while he's not, I don't believe, being sued himself, he's certainly a big part of the lawsuit and involved pretty heavily in what happened that got Vince McMahon and WWE sued. And it just kind of feels like WWE is flouting that they can do whatever they want and consequences be damned. And none of this matters because they're a $1 billion company making $1 billion TV contracts, and it doesn't matter. It's no surprise after tonight that there's not going to be any post-show press conferences. A lot of people putting 2 and 2 together with that the post-show press conferences are no more. Just happens to be the same weekend that they bring back Brock Lesnar. I'm sure that's a coincidence, but
and just 2 days after Triple H visits the White House, and takes on an official role.
Yes. So again, WWE giving a lot of people who have not already jumped off the boat a reason to jump off. And I think the sad part is, if you had ended this show with just John Cena losing or Cody winning the title or whatever the case may be, that was a legitimately good match coming on the heels of, I thought, a much better night than night one, especially from an in-ring standpoint. John Cena's best match since his return, since he started this retirement tour. And that could have stood on its own and been the talking point coming out of this and been a big positive. And instead, you flushed all that down the toilet with Brock Lesnar.
I think that there was a common sentiment when Vince McMahon's era finally came to an end and Paul Levesque stepped into the spotlight. And that sentiment was that not only are we likely to see a pretty dramatic improvement in booking, because it seems like today's generation far more aligns with the booking proclivities of Paul Levesque than they do Vince McMahon, myself included. I've gone on record many times on this show saying that, Black and Gold NXT is my favorite wrestling program of the last 20 or so years. Triple H, by and large, books the kind of wrestling show that I like, that I want to see. And I think that for a lot of people, there was a belief that by ridding itself of Vince McMahon once and for all, that there was some sort of moral high ground that existed within the company for perhaps the first time in several decades. And any semblance of that notion has been destroyed. And I think that
TKO ownership's argument was basically, well, Vince McMahon is gone. The problem is gone. Now we can move on.
Right.
And clearly that's not the case.
And what it wound up being was that with Vince McMahon out of the way, they felt as though they could instill all the worst things that Vince was known for, get away with it, and be applauded still because they're simply not Vince McMahon. And so far, they've been proven correct. I mean, business has boomed. They have consecutive sellout streaks. They're on Netflix, pulling solid ratings frequently in the top 10 in the US and in other countries. This is a company riding a very, very successful high right now. And I think that they feel invincible, and they're letting the mask slip off. And they're letting the mask slip off in a big way, and doing it over and over again, to the point that you start to feel like they're almost taunting you with it. They're flaunting what they can do, what they can get away with. I want to bring attention to Zach Barber in the chat, who sent a couple super chats over, and I thank him for that. He said, the company never ceases to prove just how low and vile they can go. Venerating a racist, cozying up to the president, being in bed with a murderous regime. These aren't, none of those things are opinions. Those are facts. Those are things that WWE has willingly and openly, and I would argue proudly, done in the last several weeks. And then, you bring back a credibly accused sex pest. Also, that's not really arguable at this point. And Levesque, canceling these press conferences and going with the format that we saw debut last night. I think that they're aware of how this looks, and they don't care, because they're able to get away with it.
Yeah.
I mean, the comments in the chat, they vary. There's certainly people who seem to be excited at the storyline prospect, the idea of seeing Lesnar and Cena go at it one more time. I mean, it absolutely makes sense from a storytelling perspective. I'm with you, Greg.
And if if you take out, and I know you can't separate the two, but if you were to kind of what my argument was earlier, if Brock Lesnar had never been mentioned in this lawsuit, and he comes back today, F5's John Cena after this match, I think a lot of people would be praising that. I think it would make sense, as I said, their history together and wanting to do one last Lesnar-Cena match before Cena rides off into retirement. It would be a different style match, likely, than a lot of what Cena has done to this point in his retirement tour. From a creative standpoint, it would make sense.
Absolutely. I mean, if we weren't talking about a very real issue as it pertains to Brock Lesnar's involvement in the Janelle Grant lawsuit, then I'd be all for this. I mean, I think that it's a perfectly reasonable and logical conclusion to draw and feud to go with during Cena's final run. But with all of the negatives on the board, if WWE had a pros and cons list to bringing back Brock Lesnar for a final John Cena feud, any moral person, I think, is going to load that con side and have very few pros, because there are other wrestlers. There are other wrestlers that could have filled this role for John. I mean, he has got 4 months left on the slate and limited dates during that time. And I don't think that in December in Boston, when we're staring down Cena's last in-ring appearance, that had Brock Lesnar never showed up, I don't believe that people will have looked at that and looked back and said, man, that was a lot of fun, but I really wish Brock Lesnar would have been there.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think people had written Lesnar off as ever appearing on WWE television again. So no one, and I guess, that's well, yes, but that's why he got the reaction he did. And the crowd was certainly into Lesnar. We're not going to pretend that they weren't. I mean, that it was a shock for everybody. And I think when you're in that moment, and you're a wrestling fan, maybe you don't register, gee, I wonder why he's been off TV all this time. Maybe you don't care. But I think we were kind of looking ahead to Cena's retirement, having written off the chance that Lesnar returns. And again, nowhere in this discussion of Cena's retirement did I ever hear anyone say, boy, it wouldn't be the same without Lesnar coming back. Like, no one needed that. No one was asking for that, which makes it all the more befuddling. And that's me being G-rated with what I'm thinking.
I think that one of the biggest disappointments here is that WWE, especially in this TKO era, they sense political unrest in the country. They sense, they sense all these things, and they love the idea of propping themselves up as an apolitical, family-friendly form of entertainment where you and yours can shut your brain off, forget about the problems in the world, and just enjoy some silly wrestling. That is their MO. That has been their MO, and they like to tout it. And so why then are they so hell-bent at throwing things in your face that fly exactly counter to that notion and that idea? Because if you're privy to the details of the Janelle Grant lawsuit, and I think most fans are, you cannot possibly think of Brock Lesnar without thinking about what's in the pages of that lawsuit. You can't.
Yeah.
All right. I want to get some thoughts from you, Greg, on some of the other stuff here.
Did anything else happen?
Mainly
I don't remember. I feel like it was just Lesnar.
Yeah, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, I guess other things did happen. I don't know that. I don't know that. A lot of the other stuff is going to be remembered for better or for worse. I want to talk about the main event before the Lesnar stuff, because I do think that there's two conversations to be had about that. The first being the match itself, and the second being John Cena's character. Mm-hmm. We have now witnessed a full circle moment. Cena has gone from heel to babyface without ever really turning. He just cut a promo on SmackDown, said, "I'm sorry, I messed up." And now the old John Cena's back. There was no swerve. There was no.
And now we know why that might be the case.
And now we know why. Yep. So, Greg, let's start with the match. I'll throw to you first on the match, and then let's kind of break down the Cena situation.
Yeah, like I said earlier, the match I thought was the best of Cena's run. Certainly, with the style of match that they had, there were some bells and whistles and some, it wasn't the straight match in the ring for the entire time, but a good percentage of it was. And I thought that it was wrestled well. Cody Rhodes getting booed by the audience was interesting, and I'm sure, hopefully, people have learned from what happened at WrestleMania when he was booed against Cena and won't, start this whole conversation again about does Cody Rhodes need to turn heel because he's been cheered at just about every arena. And so hopefully we can kind of put that on the back burner. It did happen. What are the odds that it continues? Probably pretty low, just as it was after WrestleMania. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But yeah, everything else was really well done. Cody Rhodes embracing, and that's not to say Cody's never going to turn heel. He embraced the dark side a little more in this match to get the job done and to win the title. And I think that is something that heels in the future can use against him. And to kind of point out that he's not the wholesome white meat baby faces that he pretends to be when he did what he did to John Cena to win the title. So interesting character tweak that could also be utilized as part of a heel turn down the line. I'm not advocating it for anytime soon. I think we all knew that John Cena was going to turn babyface at some point before he retired, before this run was over. I also think that it was never going to be clean the babyface turn. I think it was always going to be messy because the way he turned and everything about his heel persona was messed up from jump. When The Rock didn't show up and Travis Scott was out of the picture, and Cena even used that as part of his argument in his babyface turn promo, I guess you could call it. So the babyface turn was always going to be kind of awkward. I wasn't ever sure how they were going to get there, given how heavily he leaned. I thought they'd use Logan Paul. Yeah, given how he leaned into the heel character, I think it was always going to be messy, and it was. So, we got John Cena babyface back, and I'm sure for the rest of his run, they're going to ignore that heel turn, and they're going to kind of pretend it was a dream that we all woke up from. I think Cody certainly of the two is more interesting going forward, just because of he did things in this match that in the past he's opted not to do in matches. And so is that portending a heel turn? Is it just giving him a harder edge? Is it something he will regret on SmackDown on Friday? It's going to be interesting to see where they go with that. But yeah, a really solid match for John on the John Cena scale. It's a sliding scale for John Cena. It's a little bit different scale than we might use for others. But given what we've seen of him since he started having his big matches, this was probably the best.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you regards to quality as far as this goes for Cena. I'll save some of my thoughts in more detail because I know, Greg, you've got to get going, and I want to give you a chance to kind of talk through anything else you want to on the rest of the card and anything else you want to throw in there.
Yeah, so these are threads you can kind of pull at with Javier, and I know Sean's standing by too. I thought this was, from an in-ring standpoint, a much stronger show than last night. My one big complaint is, I think when WWE has done WrestleManias for 2 nights, they've done a great job of breaking up the shows and pacing them both well and putting the right shows on the right nights. I thought they did a pretty poor job because you had all of those hardcore matches tonight. You could have moved 1 or 2 over to last night. But yeah, I thought aside from that, and it's a little bit more than a nitpick, it affected the quality of the show, I think. But you had, the opener, the triple threat with the women, which was awesome. The timing is the biggest thing in those triple threats because you have to break up pins and you have to do multi-person moves, and they somehow just have it down pat. And so I was really impressed by that. You had the tables, ladders, and chairs match, which was just absolutely wild. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. It's going to be too risk-taking for those risk-averse people who watch. But I thought for what you kind of expected going in, which was a pretty wild TLC match, I think it lived up to that and more. So I thought that was really good. Becky Lynch and Lyra Valkyria was too long. It did not need to go 25 minutes. They set up a lot of spots to get Lyra over, even in the loss. Crowd didn't really seem to react all that much to her. I think WWE and Becky Lynch have done a very nice job of trying to get Lyra to that next level. And hopefully it works because I think she is a talent worth investing in. I thought 25 minutes was especially too long for a heel to win. I think if the babyface ended up coming from behind and getting the victory after that long, then it would make a little more sense than the heel winning after 25 minutes. So that was, something I didn't really care for about that. Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu cage match, I didn't really care for. And the other thing about all these matches that had no disqualification, whether it was the steel cage match, the Becky Lyra match, the TLC match, they all had interference. And I guess that's invited by no DQ stipulations, but it didn't make the matches substantially better, I didn't think. Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu was just kind of there. I wasn't all that impressed by it. I think Jacob Fatu has cooled off a little bit since his period of, that strong babyface reaction when he was still a heel that he was getting. Dominic Mysterio and AJ Styles was good for what it was. I appreciated the nods to Eddie Guerrero in that match. I thought that was pretty cool. Maybe a little bit out of place. I know it's the 20th anniversary and all of that, the match that they talked about, but they may have gone a little too heavy in it for a Dominic Mysterio AJ Styles match. And then Cody versus Cena, which was, I thought, Cena's best outing from a pure wrestling standpoint since this run started. So, everything else was good. It was a strong card. I thought stronger than night one, but completely overshadowed by the Lesnar return that leaves an absolute bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on the pacing of this show versus last night's. I think I said, hindsight being 2020 last night, I think maybe we'd look back and think that maybe one of the tag matches from last night should have been on this show. And now having seen night two, I think it's even more readily apparent that there really should have been a mix up in the match order and where they place the matches. And I think you hit it, Greg, is they're usually so good at this with these night two shows. They've been really effective at it at WrestleMania. And they just weren't here. This was definitely a poor plan on their part as far as the card layout across the two shows. Yeah. All right, Greg, I don't want to keep you any longer. I know you've got school this week. Just final thoughts: thumbs up, thumbs down, thumbs in the middle on this.
I would say under normal circumstances, under normal circumstances, if you cut out the last 3 minutes of the show, it's a thumbs up. But that just, the decision is just, it's mind boggling. It really is. I don't know any other way to say that. Again, they didn't have to do this. It's not like they were paying Lesnar $20 million and he had used 5 of his 10 dates and they say, well, we got to get our money's worth. We got to get 5, he hasn't been used in years. So it's hard to justify a thumbs up with that.
Yep. I get it for sure. Greg, as always, thanks so much for hopping on here. Definitely appreciate it. Was happy to have you last night. Happy to have you tonight. Make sure everyone check out Greg's column for PWTorch and Greg Parks Out Loud. Anything you want to plug, Greg?
Yeah, that's about it. I have no idea when the next pay-per-view is, but I assume I will be on with you at some point in the near future.
For WWE, I believe it is Clash in Paris at the end of the month. AEW has got Forbidden Door, so a few weeks. We're a few weeks out, but yeah, you're a regular. We love to have you. So, of course, we'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Brandon. Good talking to you.
Thanks, Greg. That is Greg Parks, PWTorch columnist and host of the VIP only show, Greg Parks Out Loud, where he reads his PWTorch column. And, of course, frequent co-host here, former host of Wrestling Night in America. And it's always great to have Greg and get his thoughts on these shows. I wanted to highlight a comment that just came through in the chat here. Graham Hall noticing that everything that happens kind of feels like you're watching a preview for Unreal Season 2. And that is a thought that I had while watching this show. Storylines and logic are secondary to like viral moments that they can congratulate themselves for. I think that's a really good point. We're kind of seeing it play out in real time now with the John Cena heel turn. Now knowing how ineffective it was, how little they seem to have in the pipeline for it in terms of ideas, and how quickly they simply abandoned it when it didn't seem like it was working. They got what they wanted out of it, which was a big viral moment and a huge storyline to center their new Netflix show around. And then they just cut bait when it didn't feel like it was when it was working great. So that's definitely a very interesting observation, and one that I think is really something to watch for going forward, because it absolutely felt like Brock Lesnar's return tonight. Say what you will about the morality of the whole thing. it felt like this is something that we could absolutely see be the focal storyline of Unreal Season 2. And I don't love that it seems like they're booking their weekly TV and their PLEs to satisfy that. All right, let's march through the card and get some thoughts from my actual co-host for this show for the remainder of the show, PWTorch columnist and podcast host Javier Machado. Javier, thanks for stepping in and joining me on this show. How's it going?
How's it going? Hey, I feel bad you called me actual co-host because through the fact I'm a total mess. Allergies have gotten me. I don't have my camera. Can't find it. I think it's behind my desk. I feel bad now.
It's okay.
So much pressure on me.
Listen, going, we're all a little flustered after the end of that show. I didn't really know what to say coming onto the air, and Greg was kind of in a similar boat. So it's good. We're all good. Let's get into it. You weren't here for the start of the show, but obviously I want to get your thoughts on the big story of the night. I will simply say Brock Lesnar and throw to you.
It's interesting. I found it interesting because I caught a tail end of what you said, and that's the way I make my decisions. Pros and cons. WWE figured that, hey, I think we'll get more butts and seats. I think less people know because we're in it. You know, we're in up to our necks in information. But I was watching it with a group of multiple people, and only my brother and I knew anything that was going on with the Vince McMahon case. So the majority of the fans there don't even know that. So I think they made they did their calculus and they figured out, hey, it's going to get a pop. It's going to get people interested. I don't think that the babyface turn for Cena was as a result of getting Lesnar in. I had a feeling that I was one of the people who believed that Cody was going to win, leading to a babyface turn for Cena. So I figured it was coming. I was surprised in the way they did it, which was Cena coming out and saying, hey, I'm a babyface now. Things weren't working.
Quite literally, yeah.
So so I was surprised in the way they did it because I thought it was just going to be a good match. And then this was the match I envisioned. I've seen plenty of Cody matches and plenty of Cena matches to know that this is your standard Cena 3.5 match. Hit how many AAs were hit? I think 6 total in the match and like 5.
Oh God, I didn't count, but there were a lot,
including super ones and on the concrete and on this and on steel. They said and all that stuff. So I thought it was your 3.5 Cena Cody match, what you would expect with all the bells and whistles. And that ending was just surprising. And I figured they did the math, they did the calculus, and they decided it was worth the whatever negative pushback they get.
What do you make of this Cena heel run now? Post-mortem, I guess. I think that we all knew that it wasn't long for the world, because there was never a chance that Cena finished up his career in December as a heel. We all knew that at some point along the line here, they were going to turn him. I thought that they had a number of logical ways to do it that made plenty of sense. The easiest being Cena loses to Cody clean tonight and simply shakes his hand and says, hey, you were the better man,
That was exactly the thought. Yeah.
Yep. And then the other being that he gets into it with Logan Paul because of what happened between them when they tagged. And I thought one of those two things for sure would be the direction that they went. And instead, we just got John just giving up on live television and more or less shrugging his shoulders and saying, as you alluded to, Javier, without actually saying, hey, this didn't work. Oh, well, moving on.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, go finish your thought.
I'm just curious. Where do you land here? Do you think that, hindsight being 2020, seeing what we saw, knowing what we know now, was this worth it?
No. I mean, I'll go ahead and not, assuming some of the stuff that with a little bit of the stuff's come out with Travis Scott, and I'm assuming Travis Scott was a Rock guy. Rock idea.
Yeah.
So with that whole thing and the fact that he said they left me holding the bag, and we didn't have any follow up, I think that had there been something planned, I think it could have worked, but they didn't. So it ended up. I was never just on the face of it against it. It's just you have to follow it up with something, and they did not. So I actually watched night 1 and night 2 today. And we, and we finished night 1. Night 1 was shorter than what we thought when we started it. So got to see some of the pre-show stuff, and Big E pretty much said what we've all been saying about the whole run, is because he also threw Travis Scott and The Rock under the bus mildly by saying that we never got the answer to the question to why he did it. We never got the answer of what was up with his relationship with The Rock, and all the questions that we had leading to the turn. Big E said, "Yeah, we never got any answers to that." So in a way, he also said, "I understand why they cut bait on the storyline and put on, and just, jumped rails from one track to the other." So
to him playing the hits, yeah.
So so that's pretty much it. I don't blame them for the quote unquote experiment, but I do blame them for not actually following up and doing what they could have done.
Ryan Solario in the chat saying that his run reminded him of Austin's heel run in 01, and I think that's a fairly apt comparison. I mean, a huge moment that felt like a massive deal at the time, and then they just didn't really know what to do with it after. I would argue that there was, I think, more thought put into Steve Austin's heel run than there was Cena's. I think that some of the stuff with the 2-man power trip, for example, was entertaining at the time, and where Austin's turn really felt like it went off the rails was they were put in this unenviable scenario where they were trying to balance an Austin heel run while also having the entire company split into 2 feuding factions, in which Steve Austin had to naturally be a part of the heel group, but the heel group was a company that had treated him like an outcast and that he didn't feel like he belonged in, and only ever became a star once he went to the babyface group. So they backed themselves into a corner, and I think that we might have looked at Austin's heel run differently if it hadn't bled into the invasion angle and subsequent summer with him, caping for WCW. But I do think that there's a comparison there in the sense that, Austin continued to get cheered. People still wanted to cheer the guy. And on a final run for John Cena, I just struggle with the idea that WWE had no foresight here to imagine or envision a world where Cena just couldn't get booed. It's striking to me in the sense that, knowing how close Cena was to the end and the fact that Cena had finally become accepted by the diehard fans, and those fans actually wanted to see him and celebrate him on his final run, that they couldn't have predicted that without just a knockout angle to really carry this thing, that it would backfire on them.
I mean, you could have done a black hat Cena in the babyface position, meaning that, people cheer him, yet he's doing despicable things, and we're just clapping because he's our guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would be one way they could have done it. Or if they had done just something, as despicable, the John Wick shoot the dog moment, kick the dog, have him do something on that level. But the problem is that for him, first off, when this first happened, I'm like, there's less than a year or about a year only left. This is a storyline that is going to take longer than that to play out. So that was my biggest concern when things first started. I'm like, wow, I mean, he's going to be retiring in about a year. So before the year, by the end of the year. So that's not that much time to tell a full robust story to begin with. And then as weeks went on, and he just basically became a trope, reciting, his lines, but in a negative, in the inverse of the lines he usually does.
In monotone.
In monotone, and not, adding to anything. Sure enough, it's just ended up being it didn't move the story forward, and you're halfway in the time that he has left. What are you going to do? So yeah, I think that maybe had you created a stronger story with The Rock being in control, moving things behind the scenes like he wants to be perceived and stuff like that, I think you would have been able to get something more robust out of it. But you didn't. You just got negative Cena, nega Cena, and and that's about it.
Yeah, Jason D. Cena didn't explain himself clearly enough as to why now he decided to turn, and that's a point that we brought up on these shows frequently. Cena had plenty of ammunition to turn heel for years. The crowd hated his guts, even though he worked his butt off for them consistently. But suddenly he decides to turn heel once the entire crowd has finally embraced him for the first time in close to 20 years. It just didn't make sense. And so if you wanted to tell that story, you needed a hook, and they didn't have it because they couldn't lean on the Rock connection.
Yep.
The Rock connection was just thrown out the window. And aside from that cool moment that they had at Elimination Chamber, it became evident that it never meant anything. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. I mean, when we discussed the heel turn on the Elimination Chamber post show, I was ecstatic at the prospect of Cena becoming this corporate stooge for The Rock. And Cena and Rock aligning based on their mutual Hollywood interests, and Cena becoming the board's guy, the TKO board's guy, because look, he needed to become champion for a 17th time. He felt that he was owed it, he deserved it, and he knew that he no longer had the in-ring ability to beat Cody Rhodes fair and square. And so he saddled up with The Rock, cozied up to The Rock, and that's how he was going to win his 17th championship. And they just didn't tell that story.
That's what's frustrating for it, because the pieces were there. He talked when he first came back. He talked about, I got these 3 shots, might have been 3, to get a title shot. And when he didn't get his last one, because of the then again, when he basically essentially screwed over CM Punk to get the to get his shot because it was in desperation. All of that made sense. You could have talked about just what hell you could have just gotten The Rock in for one more show and have the conversation on that conversation, where you find out that he got into Cena's head and he's the one who convinced Cena to turn on the fans. That's what you needed. And you at least would have had, some ammunition. I tell you what, this feels, because I follow closely the DC movie universe, and this is the exact same thing that Rock pulled with the whole Black Adam, his Black Adam movie. It's the exact same thing. It was a power play. He forced Superman into the post-credit scene in that movie, and a Gunn in an interview recently promoting the new Superman movie mentioned that somebody went and tried to basically force his vision when the WB had already moved on and pissed off a lot of people. This feels like the exact same thing. He wanted Cody to be his heel, and when he wanted Cody to be the corporate stooge. And when he didn't get that, they said, "Okay, well, you could have Cena." Rock lost interest and went off to play with his own with his own toys, and took off. So and unfortunately, I would have cut bait on this a lot. It would have been better if they cut bait earlier. But I'm sure that they had it planned. The babyface starting to happen in SummerSlam. SummerSlam's your second biggest pay-per-view, so it would make sense for Cena to go back babyface. and then just move on and get somebody over. Like you said, I thought maybe Logan Paul might be someone he could get over. I guess we're gonna revisit one last go around with Lesnar, and instead we're and maybe we do get to Logan Paul at some point, or Gunther or somebody. But yeah, it's at least he's on the right track now.
Logan Paul feels like that good final foil for Boston. It seems like it's going to be a Saturday night's main event in Boston in December, and
Yeah.
Logan Paul feels like the right opponent for that final match.
Yeah.
Chris 92 saying Triple H always talks about years of planning ahead and long-term storylines. Where was that for Cena's heel turn? Well, I think that as Javier, as you kind of alluded to, it feels to me like most of Triple H's storytelling and booking fits that criteria, except when The Rock gets involved.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at it last year during WrestleMania season, the way he blew that up, and then again this year.
Yeah, when you look at long-term storytelling, whether it's a soap opera or the comic books, particularly in the 90s when there were 200 issues as opposed to your 12 issue runs, that's you have a general idea of where things are going, and you might be dropping hints and stuff you might be going into the future. When you get something that positive drops on your lap, though, like ostensibly The Rock deciding to work closely with you you would think is a positive, considering the fact that he's a movie star and the clout that he brings. You would think that's a positive, so you could understand why you would pivot at that point.
Right.
And so yeah, you're they might have had a specific plan on how Cody's run would, maybe he would have been feuding but with Gunther at some point. Maybe that explains why Gunther lost to him at Crown Jewel, the last Crown Jewel.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they had those ideas, but then we got The Rock and we got this idea, and this might be a cool moment that people will get buzzing, and and they went with it. And then the thing is that obviously it when things go awry, things go awry.
Yeah. All right, Javier, we're gonna march through this card here, but first I'm gonna bring Sean on to discuss anything that he wants to talk about. Sean, you of course joined us as a very emergency co-host last night when Greg was a little late. Cashed in your host in the bank contract, as the chat members of the chat who were here last night are aware. Sean, welcome back. Javier did not have any audio issues, so it does not seem as though you were up to anything nefarious tonight.
There you go. See? I mean, Javier, they're trying to say I'm a heel. I'm like, I'm as big of a white meat baby face as there is. Like, there's just no way.
Did you steal his camera, though?
No, because I said I want your camera. I want to see Javier. He's a cool looking dude. Like
He did. He said it in the private chat.
Sean did steal a theme song. So,
hey, I've never gotten my theme song since we did YouTube, other than like one time, and I'm like, that's not fair. You get yours. Why can't I get mine?
If I had access to those assets, you bet your bottom dollar I'd play them, but I don't have them.
Thank you. No, I wanted to talk about the one thing I wanted to say when you guys were talking about the whole Triple H and some of the other stuff with him. I don't care what anybody believes politically, because I want to keep that out. I don't bring any of that up in this kind of stuff. I don't want to bring it up. I don't care. That's not what we're here to talk about. I think they should leave it out. I don't care what we agree with or don't agree with. They just shouldn't put it on there at all. Either, I mean, yes, the Trump stuff this time was on the nutrition stuff, which I have no issue with nutrition. That's fine. But if you don't want people talking about it either way, just don't do it. Just don't talk about it. It's just leave it alone. We might know where you think. We might know what you do, whether we like it or we don't. And that's a whole nother issue that we don't need to get into. But just don't talk about it. That's easy. Just don't talk about it. Secondly, going to Lesnar, I'm with you guys as far as I didn't want him anyway. When Brock had been on previously, the stuff with Cody wasn't very good. The feuds he had weren't very good. He was having the same match every time. It was kind of boring. It was getting played out. There wasn't a lot of good story they were telling anyway. And so, yeah, even though he's, you've had the feud with Cena in the past, just knowing whether it's true or not, no matter the fact that that stuff's even out there, and there's a very good possibility that happened. You can't bring him back. You just don't need to at this point. Just leave it alone. People have been talking about it for a while on here and everywhere. Just leave it alone. There's no need for Brock to come back. You have a couple good opponents for Cena right now that you don't need to go to Brock Lesnar. There's just no reason to do it. And yeah, the fans popped. Whatever. Who cares? It's going to be a boring feud. I'm not into it. I don't care. I don't need to see it. Some people might love to see it. That's fine. We'll see what they do. It's going to happen. But I wouldn't have had them. It was a bad end to the show for me. Just knowing, okay, there's going to be a backlash, and for good reason. And so I wasn't a fan of it. But yeah, I want to get into the match too. But you can ask Javier first about the match, because I'm curious what he thought about the match in general. Because I have a lot of thoughts, but I can talk about them real quick if you want. But Javier's the main co-host. So I want him to get in for. Okay. So the match was fine. It was too long for me. They drug it out way too long. I mean, there was just so many near falls. We talk about that a lot. There's just so many near falls, and it just it was a little overdone to me. I thought it was seen as probably his best match if you're just talking about the match layout and what they did. I thought it was good, but it was just way too long. And I was okay with Cody winning because I thought that's where they should have gone. But it did feel weird because I thought, going into tonight that they would swerve us. Cena just the baby face. I'm just a baby face now, and then it seemed kind of weird. And Cody was even, trying to be more leery of it, not just like diving all in. He was like still going with it, but not 100% going with it because he's like, I've seen this before. I want to make sure that this is on the up and up kind of thing. And I mean, the moves were fine. The action was good. I mean, they made use of the street fight when necessary. They went outside a little bit here or there. But I'm with Greg. I like that they kept it mostly in the ring. But yeah, Cody winning was the right move. But at the same time, the crowd definitely was not super into him tonight at all. I mean, even when he first came out, the entrance, it just felt you were expecting a big. I thought the crowd would be pretty into both of them, and it was just more pro Cena. They were just more for Cena tonight, and
I think
I'm go ahead.
I think it was similar to the reaction at WrestleMania, where
Mhm.
I was a little worried about the reaction that Cody got at WrestleMania, and it wound up being all for naught. I thought he came out fine in the aftermath. Tonight struck me in the sense that, one, I thought that the crowd, and I don't want to necessarily blame MetLife or the New Jersey crowd, because outdoor stadiums in particular are incredibly challenging to mic, and the sound is going to escape, through the up the rafters and into the sky, basically.
Mhm.
But I had a hard time getting a sense of whether the crowd was into things on either of these shows. It felt to me like they were most invested in Cody and Cena. And the sense that I got from that main event was that crowd was very heavily pro Cena, definitely, for sure.
Mhm.
But what I was worried about is that they were outright rejecting Cody. And when Cody won, that all my concerns were alleviated. It felt to me like they really wanted to cheer Cena because Cena was their guy tonight. But when Cody won, there was still a sense of elation, and they were especially pleased when Cody and Cena hugged. And it was clear to them that, hey, both of these guys are baby faces, and you should feel comfortable about cheering for both of them. So that was my takeaway. It felt to me like Cody will be just fine coming out of this.
Yeah, and that's what I was worried, and that's what I guess I'm worried about going forward is you don't want to turn someone heel too late when the fans are kind of bored, numb, or they're not as excited for someone. I feel like if you do turn them, you want it to be where they're still into him, where it is kind of shocking, and they get invested in whenever he does turn heel, because I do want him to eventually turn heel when it's the right time. I don't think this is the right time. Like, I've been wanting him to stay face for quite a while, and so I'm still invested in him as a face, but they just have to be careful. I mean, tonight was. I think the next few weeks we'll kind of see where he is. When he comes out in crowds, if they're really cheering for him 100, big time, and it's still like a huge pop, then I think it'll be fine. But the next 2 weeks will be curious to me how they react to him when he comes out.
They definitely have to line up some quality opponents for him, because the biggest problem that Cody had
Absolutely.
during his lengthy title run was just a lack of quality opponents. And they're really in the same position creatively as they were when Cena won the title from Cody back at WrestleMania. So with Cena transitioning to Lesnar and Cody still over there on SmackDown, it's hard to drum up a list of quality opponents, which is why I tossed out the idea last night, Sean, of Gunther moving to SmackDown, and to me that feels like the most obvious opponent for Cody. I mean, Gunther, maybe in the fall, and then you've also got Drew McIntyre that you can turn to at some point, and Logan Paul if they wanna go down that road too. So they've got 3 guys that I think are pound for pound probably better than what they were throwing at Cody before. But we'll see. We'll see what they have in mind there. Javier, thoughts on that match itself? You've talked a little bit about it, and then where you think kind of Cody goes from here as far as lining up opponents for the rest of the year for him.
Yeah, I'd already talked mostly what I thought about the match. I do want to bring up because this happened in several matches. I think they got a bit too cute with a bunch of imagery that they wanted to do. In this match, it was Cena coming out with the elevator with Cody on his shoulders. I thought it looked good.
Yeah.
I mean, corny for
Yes.
it to be like on a wrestling show, but like the visual, I thought looked awesome.
Mhm.
Pumping the smoke in was a little much. But,
Yes,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the shot of they wanted you could tell they wanted to get that shot when at the end when Cena's up against the ropes and Cody salutes. That was kind of it's a little bit too cute. I'm kind of like of two minds. I'm like, yeah, I kind of like it, but at the same time, it's kind of fake. So because wrestling, it's like, do they want me to take it as like this is get invested because it's real, or do they want me to see it as like a show I'm watching, right? So there were a couple others throughout the show. The big one being trying to replicate the boot coming off in the AJ Dominic, trying to replicate a spot from a Guerrero match where he the boot, he opened up his boot so he could escape the ankle lock, and you could tell that the boot wasn't coming off. And AJ was struggling mightily hard to get that boot off when the idea was he was supposed to slip out of it. There were several moments like that where they tried to do something cute, and because of things not working right, they ended up not looking very good. And the Cena one looked fine, but again, I think they gotta. I think whoever is advising, I want this shot, you might not want to, because some of those seem way too manufactured.
Yeah. All right, Sean, I want to throw to you for anything else you want to discuss before Javier and I kind of just run through the rest of the card. We're already an hour in, so I don't want to belabor each match like too significantly. So I'll let you throw in anything that you want to, and then we can kind of take that as discussion points as we run through the undercard.
Yeah, so as a whole, I still thought night one was better. I didn't really. There were some things I liked about tonight, but overall, I just thought night one was a better show. The wrestling. I mean, I want to talk about the women's main event or the women's championship match. The WWE the World Championship match. It was fine. It was a good match. It felt slow to me. I mean, I just there were some cool spots in the match, and it wasn't bad. I mean, people, I guess, were higher on it than I was. It was good. It felt slow getting to a lot of spots. I thought the EO power bombing Rhea onto, or no, sorry, EO power bombing Rhea onto Naomi was a cool spot. I thought there's some cool things, and Naomi just, and I know they do it in triple threats, but somebody steals the pin and just rolls somebody up. I mean, it is what it is. It's just kind of a little
Done that a
overwhelming.
lot.
Yeah, they do it too much, and so I knew it was going to happen, but it just felt, Rhea taking the pin is fine because it was just a roll up, so I'm not going to get. I mean, I asked the question, but I'm fine with it overall. It's not the worst case scenario, but I mean, I probably wouldn't have done it, but I think they want to protect EO a little bit, and that was kind of a way to do it. Just give Rhea a quick little roll up, and she'll get mad about it. So I want to hear what you guys thought about the main event, that match as a whole, and kind of where you think they're going with each of them. Because I think Rhea's she's still over, but I want them to have a plan, going forward with her.
Yeah, that works because I mean we'll start from the top of the show anyway, so we can launch right into that triple threat. I enjoyed it. I thought that, and this is kind of what I wrote in my report for PWTorch. I thought it was a step back considerably from the WrestleMania triple threat, and also from the one-on-one between Rhea and EO last month at Evolution. I didn't think that it rose to the level of either of those, but for its place on the card, what they were trying to accomplish, I thought it was strong. Sean, I'm with you in the sense that in these triple threat matches, they have been doing a lot of roll-up finishes, and I would have preferred to see something else. But I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna take a ton of points away or anything for that. I still think that I was watching closely for Naomi in this match because I think that Naomi has improved a lot as a wrestler, and I think she's done a good job with the title so far. The rather, limited amount of time we've seen her with it, I think has been solid enough. But she's certainly nowhere near the character or the wrestler that EO or Rhea are. And so I was curious to see if she stood out in a bad way in this match at all. And I didn't think that she did. I thought she held her own, thought she looked good. She looked, for the most part, equal to EO and Rhea. I thought that they did a nice job with the interplay between EO and Rhea too, with them being friendly, but also, on occasion kicking each other, hitting each other, whatever, when push came to shove, and then trying to clear the ring of Naomi so they could kind of have their one-on-one rematch, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, I liked the beats of this. I thought that it was a strong opener, just not nearly as strong as the WrestleMania triple threat or last month's title match. Javier, what'd you think?
You ever read a novel and read a paragraph and it doesn't sink in, and you go back and you read it again for whatever reason? Like it's like you read the words.
Yeah.
And that was this match. I know I saw it, but there's like a blank and a blank,
glowing recommendation.
Just a blank there. Right. The only thing, because one of the things I was looking specifically for is what you mentioned is Naomi, how Naomi was in the ring, because I many times she looks really bad. And she did not look bad in this one. She looked fine.
Yeah.
So that I did pick up. But yeah, other than that, it was hard to get invested in this one because I already knew what was going to happen. That it was going to be because the story going into this is that Rhea's never pinned EO, and I figured there was going to be some sort of variation where one's going to pin the other, and then Naomi was going to steal the pin. That was like obviously how you would book that, or not you, but WWE would book it. So I already kind of knew how it was going to end. So I was just like, waiting for the end. The fact that it was a roll up is another, to me, is like kind of more of a cop out than anything. Too many matches. I mean, just having one match that ends up kind of like, ticky tacky like that. And we had several on this pay per view where it felt like a glorified Raw or SmackDown over a pay per view where you get actual real finishes. So yeah, I mean, as far as what's next for Rhea Ripley, I had an idea when I was watching the match that said, "Oh, this would make sense if these two people feud when it's not for the title." I just don't remember who her opponent was. If I remember what we're talking, I'll bring it up. I had a good idea too. I'm like, hey, that makes sense. Rhea Ripley could wrestle this. Oh, Io Sky, yeah, that would be the thing because you play off on the story that Io, she still hasn't been Io, and that's that's a story where you don't need a belt to be a reason for their fighting.
That's true.
So that could be one of your matches for Perth, and have Io finally overcome. Rhea finally overcome Io in Perth, Australia, in a friendly match between the two of them.
I like it.
Yeah, Jay Martinez in the chat said he was in the building, and Naomi did stand out to him as a weaker wrestler compared to Rhea and Io. I am with you, Javier. I do think that Io and Rhea in another one-on-one match probably makes a lot of sense. And I could see Rhea getting her title back in Perth. That would make would make sense as well.
No, that because the match is going to be Stratton and Naomi, because it's for the Crown Jewel Championship.
Oh yeah. Oh god.
Champion versus champion.
Why do they do that?
Oh, Crown. Okay, Crown Jewel isn't okay. Yeah,
it's in Perth.
Yeah, Perth,
yeah. I wish they wouldn't do that. I don't want to see that at all. Okay. Yeah, I hate the title versus title stuff. It's really lazy booking. Okay, so scratch that idea. I do think that Ripley and Io makes sense. They're telling a story here that, one, Rhea has never beat Io, and two, Rhea is snake bitten in all the matches in which she competes with Io, be they one-on-one or in triple threat situations. So it made sense to me that Rhea was the one to take the pin tonight, because they're trying to tell the story that Rhea is not Rhea when she's in the ring with Io Sky. So I think at some point they've got to pay that off and have Rhea finally get her one-on-one win over Io. I think it makes sense that they may go for that in Paris in a major match. All right, Sean, anything else you want to throw in here before Javier and I march through the rest of the card?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I guess the other thing I would say, I guess a couple things. I mean, I'm with Greg. The solo Fatu match just wasn't very good. It was kind of disappointing. I was expecting more. I mean, Solo. I'll let you talk about that more. Solo should have kept the title, but I'm curious where they go from here. And with the tag team TLC, it was a fun. I hope Candice is okay. I think she took the spot pretty well, but man, that's still. I wouldn't want somebody like Candice taking a spot like that. Honestly, I think she was okay. I'm assuming she was okay, but man, that's. Whew, they go to some of these risky spots where, man, they're just trying to do, I feel like, a little too much. But even me, if I'm Paul Levesque, I have all these really good tag teams on SmackDown. I mean, they're really good tag teams there. I mean, they just don't tell stories with them. They don't define them. And to me, I would have just gone with Andrade and Phoenix to win that match and win the titles, because the Wyatt Six are just, they're nothing to me. I don't understand what the love affair is with it now. It doesn't make any sense. There's no story with it at all at this point. They just have these guys in masks, and they take the masks off, and they just do the braid, it just doesn't make sense to me anymore. So I wanted to hear what you guys think about that and where they're going. But as far as the show as a whole, I thought it was okay overall, and then the end of it took it down. But I'm willing to see where they go going forward, and hopefully they do some stuff. But always glad to be on here with you guys. Always fun to chat with you.
Just comment in the chat, Sean. Candice, I guess, did an interview after and seemed okay.
Oh, good. Okay, good.
I figured if there was going to be one woman in the company that was going to take a spot like that, it would be Candice, because she did a lot of that stuff on the indies, but it was scary. A lot of scary spots in that one. All right, cool, Sean. As always, thanks so much for hopping on here with us and for co-hosting with me last night. And we'll take over and talk about that match and run down the rest of it.
All right, Javier, good to talk to you, man. Good to see you. Maybe next time. Next time I'll see you.
Yeah.
All right, see you.
Thanks, Sean. Cool, Javier. So that leads us right into the second match of the night. Wyatt Six, Joe Gacy, and Dexter Lumis taking on Street Profits, DIY, Motor City Machine Guns, Fraxium, and Andrade and Rey Fenix in a tables, ladders, and chairs match for the WWE Tag Team Championships. Cool thing here, before the match itself, they did show the Dudley Boys and the Hardy Boys at ringside. They got a nice little warm reception from the crowd, and Bubba actually started a "We Want Tables" chant, which I thought was kind of funny. Wyatt 6 were your winners in just about 16 minutes. I thought this was a total car crash, as to be expected. There was a lot of fun stuff in there. I made note in my report for PWTorch, and I thought the particular the notable moment here in this one for me was the set of 4 splashes or moves off of the ring posts through tables in rapid succession. I thought that was a really cool spot. Hadn't seen something at least that significant before with that level of coordination for one spot after the next, after the next, after the next. So that was really neat. Tons of interference in this one. Basically, all of the seconds and thirds and heavies for all of these teams got involved in one way or another. So you had, as Sean mentioned when he was on, you had Candice LeRae getting involved and tossed off of a very tall ladder and going through a prop ladder down below. You had Eric Rowan involved. You had Nikki Cross, B-Fab, and Uncle Howdy. I don't know if I'm missing anyone, but there was a whole cavalcade of wrestlers who got involved and were helping their various sides try to capture the tag titles. But it is Gacy and Loomis in the end retaining the title. Like I said, I thought this was enjoyable, but it continues to surprise me at how little the SmackDown tag team division has gotten over, considering the amount of TV time that has been dedicated to them. It doesn't seem like any of these teams really have any sort of momentum whatsoever. And it's not for lack of trying. I just think that the booking, even though there has been consistency, the booking itself has been lazy in the sense that we're just getting 6 teams who constantly beat each other. No one ever gets a leg up on anyone except the introduction and inclusion of the Wyatt 6, who have just plummeted down the card in terms of fan interest. It just doesn't seem like the crowd cares anymore. So, Javier, thoughts on the match itself, and then talk to me about the SmackDown Tag Team division as a whole.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just 6 or in this match at 6, but 6 to 7 to 8 interchangeable pieces that don't mean anything. Preferred, I think, over to Raw, where I'm not even sure who the champions are or who are in contention. And who's in contention? Because then you got New Day and maybe War Raiders that disappeared from TV.
Sure.
So I mean, it just, you got interchangeable parts. When Fraxium came in, they got a push where they were, they're a cut above the rest. But then it was kind of like that meme of the guy walking with the girlfriend, and then the person's walking by and he's looking at her. Where all of a sudden they paired up Andrade and Rey Fenix, and then Rey Fenix got those two started getting the push, and Fraxium, speed of traffic. So yeah, I mean it's hard to get excited for that. Just watching the match though, I'm amazed how Motor City Machine Guns are still creating new spots at their age. I think they're probably the most underrated tag team of all time. But yeah, so they just vanish. They're just like invisible, but they're doing all this cool stuff. The spot that you didn't mention, which was one of my favorites, was Ciampa hanging onto the actual hanger. And then
the carabiner,
and I forgot who tried to hit him, and then he like pulled himself up and he missed. I think it was Frazier. Frazier flew off the top, and Ciampa actually he deadlifted himself up so that he was upside down, hanging from the carabiner, so that Frazier wouldn't catch his legs. Yeah, so it was wild. Because I was expecting, I'm like, oh wow, this is like one of those TNA spots where he's gonna get I'm thinking he's gonna get speared from the while he's hanging off the thing. Yeah. But no, he actually did that the pull up or sit up, and then that was a cool spot like that. Then Gargano moves the thing over. No one taught Frazier how to climb the ladder in a ladder match because he was going up that thing rather quickly. No one told him that you have to, take a step, wait 5 seconds, take a step, wait 5 seconds. He just ran up that thing. So, someone needs to teach him to slow down. And yeah, I mean, overall, it was a fun match. I mean, it was a fun match. Car crash, like you said. Forgot about it 5 minutes later.
Yeah, standard deviation in the chat mentioning Ray Phoenix specifically said the commentators described him as an acrobat, which I may be revealing of how they view his push, and that is interesting. They have certainly, he wasn't on the card this weekend, but Penta has very much stood out over on Raw. And Ray Phoenix, they have done everything in their power to merge him into traffic very, very quickly, throwing him in a tag team with Andrade, who is sort of the very definition of being merged into traffic in any promotion he goes to, it appears. It does not appear as though they have big plans for Ray Phoenix now or anytime soon.
Him and Andrade I'm not super worried because they have the AAA ability to do something in AAA. So,
sure, I mean they can launch them over there at any point, but if presumably they're paying Ray Phoenix a healthy sum of cash, I don't know if they're getting their best use out of him if they're just shelving him in AAA. But I guess it depends on how invested they are in pushing AAA. That sort of remains to be seen.
Well, I mean, the to talk about the SmackDown, they did bring Psycho Clown and the Iguana dude, and also they had Los Garzas, I think, are the champions, and they defended the titles on there. It for some reason WWE is beginning to feel more and more like AEW every day. In not the best of ways. I'm not super fond of those titles being defended on the on WWE pay-per-view TV, but yeah. So that's pretty much it.
Do you think that it's more of a recency bias thing, that just AAA the acquisition is fresh, so they're going to feature it, but like a lot of things in WWE's history, it seems like something they could very quickly tire of and just sort of move on.
What NXT is doing with TNA, I think is what WWE is doing with AAA in a smaller, because the main roster has more hours, so in a smaller scale. But I think we'll end up seeing like little bits and pieces, like seeing I don't know Pagano, but others also involved.
Sure. All right. We'll keep going here to match number 3. It's Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria for the WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship. This was a no disqualification, no countout match. Alicia Taylor explained the rules before they made their entrance. Lyra Valkyria came out first, and the crowd was trying to woo for her, but it was pretty pitiful. I feel bad for her during her entrance usually, because it's never quite the reaction that it feels like she thinks she's going to get, and you can kind of see some of the disappointment on her face. But stadium atmosphere here, and as I alluded to earlier, I think that a lot of the sound was escaping here on both nights. So I don't know how strong the reaction was in the stadium, but it sounded pretty pathetic on TV at least. Becky Lynch then enters, and she has got brand new music. And for those who are unaware, they did not talk about it on the show itself. But her new theme is a song written for her by my favorite band, The Wonder Years. They have been teasing that for the last few days. So those of you, or anyone who is a fan of the band or a fan of Becky, probably knew that it was coming, because they were hyping it pretty heavily across Instagram for the last few days. So Lynch has got a new theme. She heads to the ring, and we get a 25-minute match for the Intercontinental title. I can see there being a variety of opinions on this one. I really liked it. I thought that Lyra has improved a significant deal, and she has been done a plethora of favors by being involved in this story with Becky Lynch. I think that Becky has made it her personal mission to get Valkyria over. And I don't know if she has succeeded at 100%, but I certainly think that she has succeeded to some degree. And I think that Lyra is much better off for having been in this angle with Becky Lynch. I understand that there probably will be some criticism about the length of the match, which I definitely could get behind, and also the idea that if you're going to have a match this long, and Greg alluded to this in his rundown of the show, it sort of feels like if you're going to have a match that long, that the baby face should probably come out on top, but that was not the case here. Becky wins after significant interference from Bayley, which we can get into a little bit more. But Javier, I'll throw to you. Thoughts on the match?
All right, so here's the criticism of the match being too long. About the 15-minute, about the 15-minute point, my buddy and I looked at each other. Is this dragging? And like, yeah, this is dragging. To give the first, let me just say, because I've hit Lyra on this a lot, so it'd be unfair if I'm glad she did not come out with those wings. Because that makes her look like a geek, and so she came out street fight is serious. Let's no feathers, no nothing. This is it's work time. So I'm glad for that. I thought the match overall, except for the length of it, was a good match. It wouldn't need to be for this multiple. One thing you forgot to mention: Lyra can't challenge for the title again. And so you had all that going on, and I liked the zip tie spot. It gave made it this no disqualification match different from a lot of the others, and she did a lot of work with those things on. I thought that was I enjoyed it. I thought it was well done. And then what you had mentioned, I do think a lot of credit. It looks like Becky's made it her mission in life to get Valkyria over, and then they introduced Bayley as the third wheel, and I think that kind of derailed a lot of that work that they had done with, if not most of all that work that they've done with Lyra, because then all of a sudden you have two supposed baby faces just being petty with each other, and that just sapped any I think it sapped a lot of the motivation for me to cheer either of those two on. And then you end the match. You have this match going on, and you have outsider you've invested in for 20-something minutes. Outside interference plays into the finish directly, which tells me that if Lyra now is not going to be able to challenge Becky again, I guess that means she's going to start feuding with Bayley, and it's going to be more of that. And I am loath to see that be the next couple weeks with that story. So overall, I thought the match was solid. I hate everything that's coming out of it, though.
Yeah, I think we've spent a lot of time on this show, probably at least one with you, Javier, and with several other co-hosts, talking CJ off a ledge with Bayley, and he is in the chat. Shout out to CJ. And telling him that we think there's something better coming down the pipeline for Bayley. And it feels less to me after tonight like they had some sort of major plan in mind. I thought that this was going to lead to a big match between Bayley and Becky, perhaps at SummerSlam, and it didn't. They put Lyra in that spot instead. And I'm not upset about that. I mean, like I said, I really liked this match, but I do think that you have to start to wonder if there is a concrete plan for Bayley going forward, or if it is just more of this sort of wishy-washy back and forth between the three of these women. Do you, beyond Javier, you've said that you're not at all looking forward to what comes out of this, in the sense that it's likely going to be Lyra and Bayley for the next couple of weeks at least. Where do you see Bayley coming out of a potential program with Lyra?
Well, I mean, I was praying for Bayley just to I forgot what weapon Becky had. It was a crowbar. I was begging Bayley to grab the crowbar and just go, go at either of the two. Instead, she turns her back, and then, I just don't like the fact that she's, and we saw this in the when she got the tag team match with Lyra for the championship. That and she's because the way they're portraying her is that she's trying to be the consummate babyface white hat who is just screwing up, and I'm like, well, I don't like that. And if she's going to be feuding with Valkyria, one of them's going to have to turn heel. Is it going to be Bayley saying, okay, well, if me being a babyface doesn't work, then I'm just going to be, a heel? And as long as it's not the cackling heel, fine. I thought I would rather have seen it today, but maybe we'll get that on Monday or when have you. But I don't want to see two pseudo baby faces bicker at each other, which I think is what we're going to get at least week one of this. Maybe at some point one of those two is going to be solidified as a heel, either Lyra or Bayley. At this point, I mean, make Bayley a heel. Just go with Bayley being a heel and try to do something with her, because she definitely needs to she needs to upgrade that. She needs to create that character, build that character, do something with that character. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's just I feel it's going to be a slog going forward. It's just the gut reaction I've got, because when they were building up the three-way, it felt like a slog.
Just a comment here from Jay Martinez, who was in the building tonight. Said Becky and Lyra had a lot of fans hitting the concession stand. Seemed like an intermission. It's unfortunate, but it did sound like that for a good portion of the match, and I don't doubt that the length had something to do with that. It was as much as I enjoyed the match. I do think that they probably would have benefited from shaving at least a few minutes. I also think that it was a bit of a bummer for them that the zip tie spot kind of happened the way that it did. For those of you that didn't notice, the zip tie did break on Lyra well before it was supposed to, and so she had to kind of work extra hard to get the thing back on her wrists. It happened sometime around the belly to belly, that when she got her arms around Becky and executed the belly to belly. And then she was kind of struggling on the mat for a bit. And the issue was that I might not have even noticed it had Wade and Cole not called attention to it. And it seemed like they did so because they didn't know that it wasn't supposed to happen. And so they then had to do the legwork to cover it up. And then we got a few more minutes worth of action with the zip tie on afterward. So an unfortunate, botch there that can't be controlled, but the announcer certainly did it no favors either.
Yeah, that falls under they tried to get cute with some spots that then went awry, and then they had to fix that. That falls under that category. That was one of them. As much as I liked the spot, I thought that the moment that the zip tie broke, just go from that point. Call the match again, because it's not like they did anything special afterwards.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead here, and before we jump into the next match, Javier, got another VIP, or actually, no, he just dropped off. We had John from Philly on the line, but he just dropped off. John, if you're still looking to talk to us, you can hop back in the queue here before we wrap up. But for now, let's keep marching through. Javier, next one on the card is the United States Championship Steel Cage match. Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu. Sikoa retains the title in just under 13 minutes. I was not a fan of this one. This was my least favorite match of the night, and maybe one of my least favorite of the weekend overall. It felt to me that Fatu, and I do agree that Fatu has taken a step back in terms of just raw organic connection with the crowd and how much the crowd is kind of clamoring to see him. But it felt to me like he was made to be smaller in the cage. And I don't mean physically, but a lot of Fatu's appeal comes from sort of like the really brazen and just chaotic nature of his movements that he has both in and out of the ring. And it almost felt like he was confined by being in the cage. And it made him feel lesser than what I've been used to seeing out of him. And then you pair that with the fact that Solo Sikoa has been pretty consistently disappointing in big match situations. And then add the cherry on top, which is that everyone in the crowd knew that they weren't going to get a finish to this thing until the MFTs got involved, even though the whole purpose of a steel cage match is to theoretically keep interference out. And to me, those three things just created a recipe for a really disappointing and plodding 13 minutes here. I haven't been enjoying the work that Solo and the MFTs have been doing. Like I said, I think Fatu has taken a step back. Jimmy Uso just felt like an afterthought here. I just wasn't a fan of anything about this. Javier, where do you land?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking maybe I was too harsh with this in my thoughts of this match because at this point, since I had seen night one, this is what the 10th match I've watched. I'm like, hey, maybe it's unfair to this card, going through it, and we're getting Solo and Jacob on Fatu. But listening to you, how negative you are, I agree. This was just I hated this match. Just when you put the idea of putting in Jacob Fatu when he first debuted inside a cell should be a terrifying thought.
Yeah.
You should be like running to the door, trying to get out of that. Just you're trapped in there with a wild animal. Instead, it felt like we have Elmer Fudd and a cartoon lion. And Jacob Fatu for this at this point for me is Braun Strowman 2.0. Someone that you could use for stuff and people are going to pop for him doing his stuff. But he's like, he feels marked safe for the kiddos, so yeah, I had a hard time when I was doing the primer for this because I'm like, I'd like for Jacob Fatu just to lose because this, the steel cage match is something, you could have someone lose easily and protect them. And so then he can move on to like bigger and better things. And I'm like, but do I really want to see Jacob Fatu at this point to bigger and better things? Because like, do I want to see him feud with, whoever the champion is going through his, 7 catchphrases of doom? And that's where I'm at with that. And then with Solo, I think he has comedic chops. But when they gave him the MFTs, it was time to make him more serious, but he's still doing kind of like half comedy, half serious, and I don't think it's working for him. So, yeah, I'm at a loss with everything going on with that. I mean, if they're building up to like the MFTs versus the Usos and Reigns, do I really want to see that at this point? Because it's not like the MFTs have been, lighting the world on fire at this point, or Jacob Fatu or Jimmy, So yeah, I'm very, very down on that aspect, and I mean they've got decent. I was just start on Tala Tonga.
I was just gonna say Tala feels like he was brought in just to be the generic heavy to create some sort of imposing threat for this group who has no threat because, I mean, Tonga Loa and JC Mateo are nothing. They are nothing. I mean, they lose every match. They get clobbered in every beatdown. They're virtually nameless and faceless. I mean, they're nobodies. I mean, this group has no aura. It has no sense of danger or anything.
I'm gonna say one of the things that people that I think is worth talking about is a lot of the work for the Bloodline was done during the COVID lockdowns, and we were getting a lot of behind the scenes footage from them of people sitting down, having conversations, and building up their characters. And that kind of stopped once they started going for the crowds, and it was just like present them as is. And I'm of the, you've got to start doing some, having like a clubhouse or something for people to sit down and have conversations with each other and establish their characters. Yeah. Judgment Day is the only one that kind of do that. And even then, that is lighter than it used to be.
Oh, for sure.
For
sure.
But you need to start. I mean, because that's how the actual Sami Zayn thing got over, and the whole Jay and their reactions to each other. That's how that stuff got over, because you were giving them that kind of time backstage. So start doing some of that. You know, I understand it might be harder because you can have like a lot of scenes while people are sitting down watching the Titantron or whatever they call it now. To watching the behind the scenes, but start building some of these characters. That's one of the things my brother mentioned when JT Mateo came out. He said, have they totally wasted him? I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, he's nobody.
Yeah.
I mean, Mateo has been nothing since his first night. That he showed up, it was a big deal, and then immediately the next week he was nobody.
Yeah, I mean, and with Talatanga, I was unfortunate to be watching at New Japan when they were trying to make him a thing. Fortunately, he has filled out his frame some because he was like really lanky back then. So he does look a lot more imposing. But yeah, I mean, I think he needs to work on being more menacing, because he just looks like a block of a big block of wood just standing there. So he needs to work on something to feel like he's going to be more of a danger than just being big.
One thing we haven't touched on that was a general consensus among the chat room, the fact that the only real spot that they had for this match, was Fatu coming off the top of the cage with a moonsault. It felt like the crowd was anticipating it, and they saved it for the aftermath. They just threw it in like a meaningless spot at the end of the match, where of course Fatu takes out two completely meaningless characters, and that's that. It almost felt like they knew that the match was a dud and was going to be a dud, and they had to get in that moonsault there at the end to send people home happy.
Well, and then there was that spot where they're climbing, because at this point I'm already questioning the like I think you guys mentioned it earlier, the booking of like every match here is a no DQ match for the most part.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, yeah, right. Triple Threat, which is officially a no DQ match. Table Logic, which is a no DQ match. No DQ match, Becky Lynch. Steel Cage match, technically no DQ. Yeah. Intercontinental is the only one that was not.
Yep.
Wow. How did that
as opposed to straight up wrestling all night last night?
Yeah, and the only one that got blood was Gunther. CM Punk, which is hilarious. But yeah, during this match, they go to the spot where they're going to handcuff Fatu to the cage, and I'm like, they just did a zip tie match.
Yeah.
Are they not like communicating when you're doing your spots?
This is the AEW problem.
Fortunately, before you could say how is Fatu going to get out of this, it's super. I don't know if you watch the pitch meeting on YouTube. Super easy, barely an inconvenience. He just like walked off of it. It was just hilariously bad. And at this point, I'm like, what are we even doing at this point? Like,
and they missed it. Sadler mentioned in the chat it was an ode to AEW production. We had two really here. They missed the camera work for Fatu breaking out of the handcuffs, and the strange double spots where it doesn't seem like producers are communicating. I've harped on AEW for that for months. I've said it so many times on this show. They repeat spots and they repeat finishes on pay-per-views, and it feels like their producers aren't communicating. And WWE never has that problem until the last two nights. They did it tonight, exactly the reasons that you mentioned, Javier. And then last night, the strange booking of 3 tag team matches on that show, all centered around hot tags.
Yeah.
Strange. There are a lot of small complaints about these 2 nights of SummerSlam that could be fixed by swapping out a couple of matches, and I think both shows become instantly better.
Yeah.
And it's not worth parsing through which ones you make the switch on, but take at least one of the tags from last night, move it over to tonight, and take one of your hardcore matches from tonight and move it over to last night. And I think you have a show
it's actually
that's
easy.
paced a lot better.
It's actually easy because watching just the first half, the first night stuff, I was like, the Wyatt Six match should have been on this show. The car crash one should have been on night one, because you already had a lot of other like no DQ stuff that was going to be a little bit more tame on the second night. This is the one that should have gone on the first night and just gotten off with a bang with that one.
Cool. All right, let's jump into our last match of the night here. We have got the Intercontinental title. Aforementioned, Javier, the only match on the show that was not no disqualification of some sort. So Dominic Mysterio versus AJ Styles for the Intercontinental Championship, or was it a cosplay of Rey Mysterio versus Eddie Guerrero from 2005? I'm not sure. I'm kidding mostly. I thought that the homages were fine. I did note in my report for PWTorch that it was sort of uncomfortable and a little uncanny how much AJ resembled Eddie in fast movement because of the body build and the gear. I mean, the gear was so dead on to Eddie Guerrero. And Styles at this point in his career, the way that he's built, the whole thing. I mean, if you just take the neck down, it was uncomfortable a couple of times, especially when I've got an eye on the screen with the show and then an eye on my report that I'm typing in real time, and so my eyes aren't fixated on the TV, and I'm just seeing this blur of a wrestler who, without watching closely, looks like Eddie Guerrero. It was a trip.
It's funny because you're watching it as a blur and just the movements reminds me of Eddie Guerrero. I'm watching Dominic, and I know that part of the gimmick is how he's doing his hair and his look is part of that. Yeah. But I know that's part of the gimmick. But I'm looking at him. I'm like, are we sure Eddie's not his real father? Are we really sure? How about we really run a DNA test there? And I was fine with everything. I got taken out of with the nostalgia stuff because it's I've been waiting for the when you slam the chair on the thing and the other person. Yeah, I was waiting for that spot. And my brother called the loosening of the boot spot before it happened. He's like, "Oh, look, he's loosening his boots because they're going to do that spot." I'm like, "Oh yeah," and then of course you ran into the problem that it wasn't loose enough. So it looked like AJ Styles was I mean, there's a point where he just like gave up the hold and removed the boot because it was going to play into the finish. And yeah, there were a couple of spots. Like I said, this was another one. They tried to get cute. Things went awry, and they went through it anyway. And so it looked awkward. And that unfortunately was one of them. The other thing I was also looking for in this match is AJ Styles is top level performer, and I wanted to see how Dominic has progressed and what kind of match he could put with him. And he put on a damn good match, So I'm like, so his the scuttlebutt is WWE's thinking about making Dominic like the top of AAA. And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? I'm kind of like at that point. As a matter of fact, I mentioned to my brother, like, dude, I'm about to just start referring to Dominic as Mysterio. So when I say Mysterio, I'm referring to Dominic and not Rey. Just because he's what he's doing now.
Yeah, I mean the transformation for Dom has been really impressive, and he's caught on with the crowd in a big way. I mean, the heel work obviously was always very good, and he was game for every aspect of it, and he knew how to play the facial reactions and all of the little things just to the highest degree. And I think that rubbed off on the fans in a really positive way, and it allowed them to connect with him, and he just keeps getting better and improving. I was looking for the same thing as you, Javier. Dom in a big singles match against a guy who, despite being in the twilight of his career, is still incredibly good. And I thought that he held his own, looked good in his own right. It never felt like AJ had to carry him at any point in this match. It just felt like, two competitive wrestlers going at it. in a good back and forth battle. Feels to me as though, given the way that this ended and the fact that there isn't a ton going on otherwise, that they'll run this back. That they'll go with this again, especially considering the finish, and I'm cool with that. I mean, AJ needs something to do, Dom needs something to do. Regarding the Eddie tribute, Sean, who was on with us earlier, and thanks, Sean, for the super chat. Saying it feels like everyone pays homage to him, and it feels a little strange. And I don't think you're off base, Sean. I mean, I get that. It was odd. It was odd in a sense for AJ to be the one doing it tonight, because AJ really doesn't have any connection to that story. But I think the idea and the reason I was fine with it was because the angle between Dom and AJ has been very much about AJ poking Dom and trying to get under his skin. And I think playing into the Eddie Guerrero thing with the history of Ray and Dom and Eddie at SummerSlam specifically, and this being the 20th anniversary specifically of that custody match, made sense that if AJ really wanted to get under Dom's skin and give himself a real advantage in a match that was set up by Dominic constantly skirting AJ and getting out of it and weaseling his way out of it, it would make sense for him to want to needle Dom in that way. Javier, did you feel that way or see it differently?
It's weird because that kind of stuff normally, in general, when the tributes to Eddie Guerrero, like Mercedes doing or
Sure.
Mercedes and just about like half of all wrestlers doing the Three Amigos. It's fine. I'd rather the commentators would not mention it as often as they do. We know, those who know. That's at that point when you're doing like a tribute. I get it, and that again, this falls under one of those where I'm of two minds, so I haven't really like decided where I'm going to land on this. But because it was a tribute to the original match, the spots were all callbacks to the original match. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. That does not happen. That means that everything in the match was contrived. You're showing me that this is a script. So that you and again falls into you're getting too cutesy with it. So part of me appreciates it, but it also makes me think that this is being written and not something that's happening spontaneously. This is different from like to go to Kenny Omega and Okada, where Kenny Omega in the first match goes to hit one winged angel, Okada gets out. So you're like, okay, well maybe if he hits it, and then the same spot happens, and then he hits one winged angel, and then the next match is like, well, this person figured out how to get out of one winged angel. That's different because you're building on a story and you're going back to But in a case of like, oh, we're gonna do the exact same spot with the chairs, we're gonna do the exact same spot where I loosen my boots to escape out of the thing. That gets a little bit too cute, and now I'm thinking about, hey, look, I remember when that happened. It's like it's a lot when movies nowadays like over rely on the nostalgia baiting, where it's like it reminds you, oh, I remember when Lord of the Rings did it, but you're also thinking, oh, well, that was better. You know what I mean? And as much as I like this match was cool. When you're doing those spots, I'm like, man, yeah, that reminds me of Eddie Guerrero. Those were good times. And I'm thinking about then. I'm not thinking about now. So again, I'm of two minds. Like I appreciate it, but I'd rather you not do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I certainly get that perspective, and I think that I didn't think that this match was consequential enough for me to. I don't want to say I don't care, but I'm not moved in either direction, just because it was a piece of the undercard, and so I'm fine with what they went for and the story that they were trying to tell. But I think you're right, Javier. I mean, I totally get that, and it makes a lot of sense.
Well, it's not like I'm really upset that they did in this match. It's just that something like because going back to to the Cena pipe bomb with CM Punk, that is designed for you to say, oh, that was just like when he's doing the thing that CM Punk did back then.
Yeah.
You're thinking about then, and not thinking about it. And it's being done way too much, not just in wrestling and like, overall everything. But that's I'm just pointing it out in this one because this was fine. This one was fine, and it's maybe different for other people, but yeah, it's just a point that like I'm like, oh, I'm remembering Eddie because Eddie was so cool, and I kind of want to go back and watch the original match now.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I wasn't thinking it in the moment, but I mean, my first thought as I was watching it happen was absolutely, oh, Eddie and Angle, WrestleMania 20. Like, I haven't watched that match in a while. I was there. Maybe I should go back and watch it. And suddenly I'm out of what's happening in the present and thinking about, 20, 25 years ago. Yeah. Cool. Javier, we've covered the whole show. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of go over the weekend as a whole. Give me your quick thoughts, at least on night one, and then we'll kind of roll that into an overall thumbs up, thumbs down for this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, Bliss and Flair was the right finish. Reigns and Uso kind of don't really. Not real much point in that. Karrion Kross and Sami Zayn has me thinking, because I mean, this was like a complete and utter defeat for Karrion Kross. I thought that he would lose the match, but he would lose it because Sami, doing something, violent, proving him right, as opposed to, that didn't happen. He was given the opportunity, he didn't. So this was like a complete and utter defeat for Karrion Kross. I've heard his contract's up at the end of August. Is he going to get re-signed? Who knows at this point? That makes me doubt it after this finish. Stratton and Cargo surprising because I thought that Cargo was going to win just because the Crown Jewel match would then set up Naomi and Jade Cargill. I figured that this match might as well be called the cut bait match. Who they're going to cut bait with, and it looks like it's Jade Cargill, clean finish, very like clean finish as a whistle finish.
7 minutes.
So I'm thinking, and then they put over Tiffany Strong in the commentary afterwards. So that's where we're at. Didn't really care for Jelly Roll and Logan Paul because of just this was not a well done celebrity match for me. And then CM Punk and Gunther was actually a really good match, and I thank God that Seth Rollins cashed in. Because this is like my favorite moment of the night was Seth Rollins coming out. Unfortunately, the only thing I had spoiled was that I was able to get away from spoilers, but I accidentally read a headline that said, and it wasn't even directly. It was Becky saying that she's not apologetic for lying about Seth's.
Oh man!
And I'm like, oh, that means that Seth was involved, and that probably means he cashed in.
That's the worst too, because like you successfully avoid the whole thing, and then it's not even direct. It's just like a peripheral thing.
Yeah.
I've had that happen where the shows that I haven't covered for the Torch lately, the pay-per-views or the PLEs that I haven't covered recently for the Torch, I'll avoid social media until I'm able to watch it, usually the next afternoon. And it never fails. Like somehow I'll just be innocuously looking at something. And like, I think last time it was an email, like from WWE Shop. And I was like, come on, are you serious? Like the random spam email is going to be what spoils it for me.
Yeah, in this case, I was just seeing what the temperature was, and like the news thing was underneath, and it was the first one, and it just the word Becky and Seth Rollins and unapologetic was like, oh, I just caught those 3 words. I'm like, and then I'm like fighting with my brain. Don't fill in the pieces. Don't fill in the pieces.
Yeah.
It's like sure enough, nope. If I'm like, okay, well, I guess I know what happens. But yeah, I think overall, I mean, it's hard for me to say which night I like better again because I did watch them back to back. I think that's unfair to night 2 because at that point,
sure.
I'm kind of like out of it. But I do think the first night overall was better. I don't think you had as much shenanigans in those.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was not that much of a big fan of the second night over the The first night was much better. It was an okay SummerSlam. I give it a mild thumbs up just because it was it was okay. I don't want to say it was like just totally mid. But it just felt on acknowledging WWE for the last couple of weeks. I've been going on about how, again, to talk about how there's like AEW, it felt like this card came together like at the last minute, like 2 weeks to SummerSlam. We're like, holy crap, we got a SummerSlam card we got to slap together. And a lot of these matches were like, okay, this match is happening, this match is happening. You kind of already knew that we're getting there, but you didn't have that, but it was like, okay, well, this match, and this match, we're booking these matches for that day. And it felt very reminiscent of that 1 year where I think it was like 2 or 3 years in a row, where particularly with the first Forbidden Door for AEW, where you had like you had 2 pay-per-views like 1 week after the other, like a major like Wednesday named show, and then like another pay-per-view like a couple weeks later, and it felt like everything like came together too hastily. This felt the same way because of the Saturday Night Main Event with the Gunther stuff and Evolution. And I think that them trying to, because a lot of that was them trying to counterbook AEW, ended up hurting SummerSlam in the long run, in my opinion. So this is the least hyped SummerSlam I've been in for a while, and it's not like it blew my expectations out of the water. It was pretty much what I expected. So that's not a super positive for me.
All right. Good time to go VIP. Want to get this plug in here before we sign off. PWTorch.com/go VIP for those of you listening on demand after. For those watching here, it is, of course, on the screen. You get so much content, ad-free podcasts, VIP-only podcasts, newsletter archives. I said last night, I'll say again tonight, if we're talking about we have been talking about the death of Hulk Hogan, and perhaps you're interested in going back and looking at his career or the controversies, whatever it may be, as it relates to him. You can do that through the use of the back issues through PWTorch. It's a great resource and a great tool for that kind of stuff, and also just for looking at the history of pro wrestling. Wade's got more coverage than just about everybody. And of course, going VIP, you get a ton of awesome VIP only exclusive audio shows, including The Fix with Todd Martin, Wade Keller Hotline, Everything with Rich Fan, the post-event roundtables, which Wade and company were recording when we went live on the air tonight. So that'll be up and available for you shortly, if it isn't already. You, of course, get Greg Parks Out Loud, where he reads his most recent PWTorch column for in audio format. And Greg, of course, was kind enough to join me for the first part of the show this evening. So always a great time to go VIP, but certainly now as we head into the fall season and lots to talk about, there is going to be so much discussion about this Brock Lesnar return to the company, both good and bad. I am very interested to see what Wade and Todd and Rich have to say about it. And so looking forward to checking all of that content out. I'm sure a lot of you are as well. Javier, anything you want to plug here before we sign off?
Well, like I mentioned, acknowledging WWE podcast for part of the Daily Cast lineup, and do the primers for WWE pay-per-views. So that's pretty much and occasional co-hosts were needed.
Perfect. Just I forgot I didn't throw my 2 cents in on the overall quality. I was a mild thumbs up last night. I think I'm gonna land more thumbs in the middle tonight because of the Brock return. Overall, I think I'm with you, Javier. Mild thumbs up, not more than that. I think that this met my fairly reasonable expectations, but I was a big fan of the main event until the Lesnar return, aside from all the discussion we had about the John Cena heel turn and how that didn't work and how they executed the turn back to face. I really enjoyed the match itself in a vacuum. So thumbs in the middle overall for me after or a mild thumbs up for me after a thumbs in the middle tonight and a mild thumbs up last night. You can catch me, of course, on these PWTorch post shows. We do them after every WWE, PLE, and AEW pay-per-view. So I will be back before too long with another one. Javier, thanks so much for joining me. And until next time, this has been Wrestling Night in America.